you're really an amazing father.
No, they'll hear everything anyway. All right, so let me see. This was the time.
I mean, you ended up being, I mean, I'm a single and father over some boys, remarried, but you were like, and their mom was only a few blocks away and sees them alternating, whatever. But you were a single father.
Yeah, I guess I had sole custody. I was with them. I had twins. They were maybe 8, and an older boy is 10. I had sole custody, so they were with me 24/7. And we'll just leave it at that. I mean, they were with me all the time.
Okay.
I knew that the practice I was working at in Connorsville was going to go down because the factory that was there was going to close, and that's where 85% of my patients came from the factory, right? So, and on a side note that I'm proud of, I'd never left them, even though they lost their job, had no money, stuff like that. I stayed there to take care of them, right? I'm very proud of myself for that, but we had to get some other endeavor going on. So I was going to open up a neurofeedback office. That's what I wanted to do. So I found a place closer to home where I could do the neurofeedback stuff. I went and saw a nice, cute little building in front of this factory. I said, I'll go check on that. I went to check on the rent on that building, and the owner of the factory was super cool. He got me in there. So I started doing the neurofeedback on my way home a few nights a week until the practice had to close, and then I'd be there full time. The guy that owned that building, he said, hey, why don't you come on over for Christmas dinner? My son is doing beef Wellington. He's at a culinary school or something like that. And I said, okay, sure. So his house was like a 10,000 square foot home, 8 bedroom, 10 bath, basketball court upstairs on 10 acres, right?
Wow.
So I was very impressed with the house. Very cool. So anyway, accelerate up maybe a year, and a year later, I couldn't get the business going there because I was only there a couple hours a night. I could not do the neurofeedback, so I had to close it, right? So a year later, I came back, and I was going to tell that they already rented that little building in front of the factory. I came back, and I was going to open up in the same area because it was doing good in the beginning, right? So when I drove by that big house, I saw a for sale sign in the front of the yard. And in the factory where he owned, the flag was at half staff. I thought maybe the guy died, right? So I went in there to tell the girls, anyway, I'll be in the area, blah, blah, blah. So, and I said, is Joe, is his, did he die or something? What's the flag at half staff for? And his house is for sale. He go, oh no, he moved to Florida, but his partner killed himself in church. That's why the flag's at half staff. So anyway, the guy who was taking over the factory for this guy that moved to Florida who owned it, right? He said, why don't you rent that house at the boss's house, that big house, right? I said, I don't need a big house like that. I have no interest in it. And then he kept calling me and wanting me to buy it. I said, no, I'll rent it, right? If you can rent it to me for what I'm paying for my rent now at my other house, I'll just take it, right? He said, deal. So I got that house for like $1,300 a month. Huge house. The benefit of that is if you get one room dirty, you can move to the next one and the next one, right? So you never have to clean it. So we went in there, and I said, I'm going to take another stab at this office, bootstrapping everything myself, right? With like nothing left in your pocket. So I said, I'm going to start it again, but I'm telling you, if I can't make it work, I can't pay the rent. Are we clear on that? I was just taking a stab in the dark. Again, I had the kids with me, right? And he said, yes, that's not a problem at all. So he wanted me there in the wintertime to make sure the pipes don't freeze or something like that is what my guess is. You know why he gave it so cheap? So I said, okay, cool. So anyway, we did a 5-month run at that practice, but the rent was so much and there was no more income from the other office on Connorsville that we had to close it. And I told the guy, hey, I got to find something else. This is where we got together later. So anyway, so he said, that's not a problem. Just stay there. You and the kids can stay there. Right. So we stayed there. And then I said, if you've got a buyer, we're out. So we stayed there, maybe free rent for 4 months. And he said, I got a buyer. I said, okay, we're out of here. So I took everything we owned. We put it on Craigslist or sold everything. Bicycles, kids stuff, everything gone. Because we needed some money to hold over until we got that other job, right? We took everything else that we didn't sell. We put it in the trunk of the car, that Lincoln LS, the nice car. right? So he jam-packed that trunk full of everything else. That was our dresser. We went to a hotel. We stayed there for a little bit, right? And then the money ran out there. So I went to this guy who had that big house, and I said, look, do you mind if we stay in your garage? I know you sold the house. Could we stay in your garage for a few days till I get a job lined up? He said, sure. So me and the kids went and stayed in the car, in the garage, the house we just rented. We were in there. Right.
Now,
so
let me interrupt here if you don't mind.
You go right ahead.
I just want to repaint this picture. I want to clarify this. So we've all been in tough spots. I mean, I talked to another fellow, actually, the owner of St. Elmo's Steakhouse near you in Indianapolis. And he went through a time, even though he's done quite well in his life, where he was selling his paid for cars and then leasing a car so that he can get a little furniture in the apartment or condo that he was living in, where they had TV sitting on top of the TV box as furniture. I mean, now he's owner and, partner with his son of one of the nation's most famous steakhouses. He took Steak and Shake public. He took Noble Roman Pizza public. He had a number of ventures, Mustards in your area. Yeah. But there's always this backstory. And this is what yours is reminding me of. Yours is a little bit tougher, because I want the audience to think about what it would be like. You've got the kids with you. You've got all of your belongings in the trunk of the Lincoln. And you've run out of money to the point where you can't even stay one night at a hotel. And I'm imagining that it wasn't the Hyatt.
Correct.
You were staying in.
Yes. And it does get worse. But it does get better too, right?
You were staying in a budget hotel, and it gets to the point, because I know from a pride and convenience and having your kids sleeping in the car because you're a father in a garage standpoint, you really have to have no option before you're going to have to call a guy whose house is sold, who already helped you, and you don't want to put him out anymore, to say, can we, just so we don't get picked up for sleeping in a car behind a 7-Eleven, can we at least close the garage door? We're going to sleep in this car.
Correct.
Like, where were you? What was that like in that moment? Where were you emotionally?
Well, you got to be strong for the kids, and you got to always think, 10 steps ahead. What are you going to do? Where are you going to, that's not bleach, is it? Where are you going to go? What are you going to do? I mean, okay. When people say life painted you in the corner, right? Did not paint you in the corner. You just stand there, wait for the paint to dry and walk back out. Do it again. So I knew there was an answer. If you call any place to get a job and say you're a doctor, what have you been doing all these years? I've been a doctor. They're not going to hire you because they know you're going to bail, right? So they don't want to hire you. You go get a chiropractic job, they eat their young and don't pay you, right? I couldn't even find one. Don't pay me, just give me a job, right? So anyway, I found a job finally through some connections. I said, okay, I got to take the kids to school and go to my new job, right? So I'm sitting there getting their clothes out of the trunk, and this thing was packed tight. You couldn't even put an extra molecule in there, right? They'd have to go in the glove box, right? So it was so packed. So I dropped the kids off at school. I'm heading down to, it's about an hour and a half away for this job. I would have had to commute that, right? So I'm driving to the job. The lights start flickering on the dashboard. As a typical guy, I said, I'll get that later. I'm going 80 miles an hour down the highway. I look in my rearview mirror and smoke's pouring in. I said, well, I better pull over and get that now, right? So what happened is my trunk was on fire because the battery for the car is in the trunk, and I packed it so much I shorted the damn battery out, stuff in the damn trunk with everything. So I'm pulling over on the side of the road. All I could think about was, I must have looked like Cheech and Chong getting out of the car when I opened the door, because the whole thing was a smoke billowing everywhere, right? So I got out. I did make it off the side of the road, but the only thing I could think about is what the hell the kid's going to wear to school tomorrow. So I got out and popped the trunk, started reaching through the fire, grabbing anything, just throwing it behind me, right? And my sleeves were all burnt up, and my tie was burnt up to a knot. That's better than getting it squishing at one guy's ass, but it's still... So I was burned up to a knot, right? And I looked at everything I threw behind me was on fire anyway. So I said, screw it. I just sat there and I just started crying. I haven't done that forever. While everyone else was busy with their day, driving by to get to their job, right? So I called my new boss. It was my first day. He said, you're not going to believe this. And he hung up on me.
This has been Jeff Stearns, Connected Through Cars.